On today's episode of FRRadio, we welcome on James Dolan. James is building a new community centered around the new Belmont Park. James grew up. His dad took him to the track when he was a youngin'. He was a Travers baby himself, born in '99 when Lemon Drop Kid won. It was a great conversation of the idea behind Stable James's arc that involved horse racing, his vision to bring it to the masses and for it to be the conduit to bring people together. So we hope you enjoy this conversation with James Dolan.
FRRadio Radio, where the race begins. The homies have reached the starting gate, and they're off.
What's going on, James? Thanks for joining us.
Thanks for taking the time.
What an absolute pleasure. Beautiful Whitney day. I think right after the rain, we were back to back there on the AVR stream.
It was funny. The timing of it all, I was like, oh great, I'll get like the spot right before the Whitney. And then I think they just were a little delayed. Thank God though, I wasn't on it because you made one of the more impressive like impromptu race calls, actually calling the Whitney itself. I would have never been able to do that. So I'm glad you were in the hot seat and not me. And I just batted cleanup. But you did great with that.
I saw the John Franklin, the comedian that did it was the sale the next day. I think you're buddies with him already too. I saw him as I was walking up. He had a beer on stream. I immediately relaxed and kind of felt jealous that I didn't bring a beer with me too. But it was funny. I was out of the hot seat. And then my buddy David, who sat down and was kind of telling his story how I got into things, all of a sudden I'm talking to Dan off screen and they just point at me. I was like, what? And they're like, come here. I was like, shit.
Have you ever called a race before, even informally for friends, or that was your first time ripping it?
I'll always joke around, the whole Larry Coleman thing. I'll joke around and do that, but I've never called a race before. So the beginning was shaky. Then I midway through, I kind of caught a little bit of a rhythm, and then I kind of tailed up at the end. But I went to go rewatch it because I wanted to prepare for this interview and see what you said on there. But I think they deleted it. I think I think the little horse racing kings got a little too deep for the people in the picnic area.
So that's what it was. Yeah. I had no idea. So it's so funny. I was like, okay, so this is my first press appearance. Kind of cool. Let me send out the link over the next couple of days to folks. And then I think it was one morning, 2 days after, and people were like, yo, the YouTube link, it got taken down. And I was like, well, there we go. And I was like, is it something I said? But good to know it wasn't.
It was not.
The horse racing kings. That's funny.
The beauty of Saratoga and the blessing of the curse of getting live interviews of people in the picnic area is, you have people that are, tuned up. And I mean, there was someone that jumped on the middle of the stream while my buddy David was in the chair. He just walked right up, didn't really care. He probably didn't even remember the next day. But I think there was things said about geopolitics with next to a 13-year-old that was interviewing him, which is crazy. But
that's wild. Yeah,
you shove the camera into a drunk person's face. There's some give and take there.
Totally. Okay, that's interesting context. And I was like, do you know what? I'm afraid to kind of ask ABR because maybe it's just a sore topic. But hey, there we go. Breaking news to me, at least.
Yeah, I checked literally today. So I might hit them up and try to get
downloaded the full YouTube thing, so I can give it to you because I'll have your portion. Yeah,
it'd be awesome.
Yeah,
but it was a ton of fun meeting then, and I think we met them the next day at the sale too. But take us back to I think one of your first birthdays was at the racetrack, right? So take us through how you got into racing.
Yeah, I always joke I was doomed from the start, but I'm a Travers baby. So August 28th is my birthday, which, that last Saturday of August is always the Travers. So my first birthday was 1999 Travers Lemon Drop Kid won, which was always a betting angle for me growing up because I just thought it was cool that a horse that was so pivotal to a race that was big up here and I was so young for, would have huge progeny going down the line. But my mom's from upstate New York, actually not too far from Saratoga, about 20 minutes away, had a bunch of extended family living up here. And so it's kind of been in my blood, just being around the track. It wasn't until I was call it 7 or 8 years old, my dad got into horse racing ownership via a couple of syndicates when they were much smaller than they are now. And I just, for some reason, he decided to take a 7 and an 8-year-old along to, Gulfstream and Keeneland and Churchill. And I just met this awesome community of what was predominantly like older guys. But I thought the coolest thing about it was they weren't treating me like an 8-year-old. Like I was learning to read the program. I was, placing my own bets type of thing. And I never felt like I was like talked down to. I never felt like I was anything less than. You kind of feel a little bit older when you're in this ecosystem. And so I kind of was just taken from the start with that. And then I graduated college in 2020. I went to the University of Michigan. I started working in investment banking in New York. And as I started to, have a little bit of disposable income, I went to my dad, who had gotten out of the horse racing game, and said it'd kind of be cool if we got back into this and did it together. We were living in separate places, but it was a way for us to kind of honestly talk to each other every day, how our horses were training. And so we've been owners for the past 6 years, have been lucky to have a good bit of success, which, any success you can have in this industry, you gladly take. But yeah, that's kind of the origin story all the way to like where I am now. But yeah, it's been fun from the owner's perspective. And I think now being in the sport for a little bit longer, I've just been trying to think of ways of bringing in, what we have started talking about, a new generation. And whether it's people at the track, whether it's drawing eyeballs to the media side of things, on-track live events and experiences, there are a bunch of angles we can kind of attack it, and people are working in their own swim lanes. But with the new Belmont Park going up in New York, I'm going to try and bring the New York crowd to a new venue.
Yeah. And we'll get into stable in a second, but I want to dig a little bit more about your early memories of the track. One of my earliest memories is I'd go to Monmouth Park once a summer with my family, probably at the races, and I remember like being 7, 8, giving a few bucks to bet, getting $20 to start the day, $2 to win on every race, basically. And there was one day where I got hot, had like 2 or 3 winners, and I was like, if I bet every single horse in the last race, how can I lose money? And that was, I think, honestly, that probably birthed, the data side of my brain that started enjoying the numbers part of the track, because when I lost money on it, I was like, how's that possible? And then I started to understand statistics and odds and all that. So you learn a lot, like betting horses going to the races. But is there any early memories that stick out to you?
So it's very fortuitous I'm sitting where I am. So you talk about Monmouth Park, Jersey guy as well. So I must have been 3 at the time. So I have these early memories of it. But when I went to school that Monday, we were asked to draw or paint basically, what we did over the weekend. And everyone's like, oh, I played soccer with my sisters, or, oh, I went to the park or something like that. And this guy right here is what I painted when I was 3 years old. That basically says something like, I went to the track with my dad and Andy, one of my dad's friends, and we watched the horses go around. And it's like kind of a descript oval. And then I guess the blue is supposed to be a bunch of different horses. But it had such a lasting effect on me, to the point where I'd be in school as a toddler, and I'd be like, nah, this is still the coolest thing I ever will see and will probably ever be a part of. And so that's probably the earliest memory. The coolest memory I'll ever have is when I was about 8 years old. We had a horse running in the Stephen Foster down at Churchill, a grade 1 at the time. And I was sitting on, they take those small planes to Louisville. And it was like a 1x2. And I'm on the aisle seat. My dad's in the window. And across from us is Joe Bravo, who Jersey Joe, my favorite jockey ever. And this poor guy, he probably just wanted to sleep on his plane ride down. According to my dad, I talked to him for the entire 3-hour plane ride, just peppering him with questions. And then we ended up winning the Stephen Foster later that week, which was kind of the first one grade 1 that I was ever in attendance for. And I just remember being thrown up and down in the winner's circle by my dad. But it was when you have those types of experiences, it's hard not to get romantic about the sport, fully recognizing it's not even a dime a dozen, whatever that to the exponential power is. But when you do have those feelings of holy crap, like this is awesome. It's hard to get rid of. So, and it keeps you coming back for more.
Who was the horse?
Macho again was the name. If you recall, the small gray horse that didn't look like much ran second to Rachel Alexandra in what I think is the 2009 Woodward. He was gaining on her. We have a picture of it somewhere in here, but lost literally by a nose. One more jump and he would have gotten her, and she was obviously horse of the year that year. And those two were never the same runners again, but he made like 2.2 million, I think, in earnings.
Got
6
it.
wins. He ran second in the Preakness. Like he gave our family quite a ride. So it was easy to get into after that.
And I think that's the best part. And Jason Worth talks about it too, in a sense of it's the one sport where you get to celebrate with your family. Like, yeah, like football, baseball, basketball, team sports, like your team becomes your family. But he's like, you win the World Series and you look up at your family, and it takes a little while for them to get to the field, where it's like horse racing, like you are with, your family and like your friends throughout. Some of them you've met through the game actually, which is kind of cool to see a full circle. But it's the one sport where like, you can be jumping up and down with your dad or your mom or your brother or your sister. So it's like, it's hard not to get romantic when that happens too.
Absolutely. I think actually, and even going one step further, and it's probably something we'll talk about, I think it's the one sport that there's so much access to every part of the sport, like every stakeholder. Like you go to Saratoga or honestly any track in America, and you're sitting next to or standing next to and watching a race with the trainer, the owner, obviously not the jockey, but like the breeders. Like there's so much accessibility in this sport, which again, you don't get that in any other professional American sport without literally paying up to like sit next to celebrities or owners or things like that. And so I think that's what makes the racetrack a really cool venue in and of itself, is just, there are obviously different areas where people sit, but people just congregate and walk around and you never know who you're going to see. And it creates a fun type of community where I think a lot of other sporting venues here in America, it's just so segmented and bifurcated. You don't get that feeling of community until you all like cheer together, but then you don't get to like revel in all of the wins, losses, etc. together as well.
Yeah. And I think someone described it as, and I've kind of like made this a moniker for us, is when you go to the racetrack, you're the star of your own movie. In a sense of like, if you want to plug yourself in and, go find Portnoy, say what's up, root for his horse, you could do that. If you and your boys want to get drunk in the picnic area and yell on a live stream, you can do that too.
Yeah.
If you want to, make a name for yourself betting or go play at a contest, you can, or like, it's the one sport too, like you said. I mean, at Saratoga especially, you're so close to the action where it's, you got Jose Irad like walking right through where everyone else is coming through. I mean, and that's with whatever $10 general admission ticket you can get. Meanwhile, to do that at Yankee Stadium or, for the Giants, I couldn't even imagine what that kind of access costs.
To be on the field. Yeah. Forget about it. No.
Yeah. I don't know if you'd be one of the corporate sponsors, probably do that. So it's like, it's a beautiful thing. And for me, it's so nice because it's so accessible from so many levels too. I mean, you think about, I'm a single dude buzzing around, but like when you have a family of, I'm one of 4 boys in my family, there's 6 of us, if we went to the Yankee game, it was like, I can't even imagine what it would cost now between like a hot dog for everybody, some popcorn, tickets, parking. Like it's exorbitantly expensive now to like have these experiences where you can go to the track. I'm not sure if kids get in free because candidly, that's not something to my mind when I'm walking to the track.
Yeah.
It's very cheap to get the kids in, and like concessions aren't crazy. And, for $20 entertainment, you could cook up a mean $10 show parlay and then, bet $1 or $2 to win in every race and have some entertainment. So I like it because it's for everybody, it's like, no matter what you're into, like there's something there for you. And like, I think New York racing, especially Saratoga, I think my favorite part of it is like, no matter who you bring to Saratoga, and like, we'll get into stable, and this is a good segue to this weekend. No matter what you're into, architecture, fashion, drinking, gambling, all the fun stuff, like whatever you are into, there's something for you in Saratoga, which is amazing. So take us through, you're welcoming some people, this weekend. So first give us kind of like the elevator pitch of stable, and then take us through kind of the excitement that's happening this weekend.
Yeah. So again, being the owner and an owner in the sport for so long, I wanted to capitalize on the new energy that a new track, Belmont Park, right outside New York City, is going to bring. But I started hosting these watch parties in the city for a couple of my horses that were running out of town, renting out the back half of bars in Manhattan, renting out full bars, getting, just people together. We'd have like 50, 75 people show up. Horses would win. People would ask me when they're training next, when they're running next, where are they going to run? And I just saw there was a lot of curiosity around the sport, but the only entry point to date had been either one, going to the track on your own and kind of, to what we just said, make your own adventure, but sometimes you don't even know what type of adventure you can have, or two, doing the ownership route, whether it's like micro fractional all the way to, full buyout type of things. I thought to myself, we're going to have this brand new venue. No one in New York seems to know about it, but the state and NYRA put in a ton of money, and it's going to be state of the art, a place where people are going to want to go for live events and experiences. Why not create basically an all-inclusive and an all-access club that gets people out to Belmont Park on a regular cadence, every other week, every month, so that people can build horse racing into their social programming and how they create their calendar. And then on the flip side of things, bring the sport into the city. I think we talk about the community that this, sport has. Create a mentorship program with very successful owners who have their own enterprises, and I'll feed them a bunch of hungry 20-somethings who want to make it in their career. And all of a sudden, you're finding a gap and filling a need there. Do a bespoke dinner in the West Village where you bring in a media personality or a trainer and get 15 people involved and do a fireside chat just so people can see what it's like. I think that'll help bridge what I would consider is an accessibility gap right now, just from the perception of it. Because as you and I know, it doesn't actually cost that much money to be an owner in the sport, because there are these fantastic enterprises that allow people to have the ownership like experience for not the ownership price tag. But instead of focusing on the ownership perspective, I said, what if we just widen the social funnel first and bring as many people into more social programming and community-based and experiential-based programming? And then if we want to convert people to owners, fantastic. And we'll have the avenues, we'll have the, syndicates that we're going to want to partner with. But it's all about building a social funnel. It's all about building community and membership-based programming first. And then, you hope you grow the sport in due time there. So that's kind of the pitch. What, Matt's alluding to now is we're having what I'm calling our founding members weekend up here in Saratoga this upcoming weekend for the Alabama Stakes, where we have about 32 people coming up. It's most people's first time up in Saratoga. Full weekend of programming. We'll have like a cocktail welcome party, and then we'll do a Caroline Street bar crawl. We have some pretty nice hospitality at the track at the 1863 Club, which is like brand new and renovated. We're going to watch a race from the winner's circle. We're going to present a trophy and have a race named after us. And then on Sunday, we're going to do a backstretch tour, barn tour of Christophe Clement's barn, Dave Duggan's barn, and then watch the workouts on the Oklahoma track. At the end of the day and at the end of the weekend, I'm going to hope that all 32 people are like, one, I need to plan my next Saratoga trip. But two, you ride that momentum of what excitement the sport can bring as we bring it downstate to New York City and to the new Belmont Park. And we'll have a hopefully successful launch of the more Belmont-based programming later this September.
Yeah, it's an amazing concept, and like I said, I'm here to help any way possible, because I think it's amazing. And honestly, listening to you explain it really triggered two different things in my own brain. I know you bought a horse with a Delphi, so Matt over there.
Yeah.
And he was saying how when he moved to the city first, he would go to the OTBs and he made friends that way. So it's kind of funny to flip the funnel that way, or that was how he made friends. Where now it's okay, make friends and gather around horse racing, which would be cool in New York City. And then on the other side of things, the mentorship side of things. One of honestly my favorite episodes we've done of this is with Connor Foley, our bloodstock agent, Oracle Bloodstock. He gave a really, really good, I always ask, magic wand, what would you do to make the sport better. And he was like, what if there was like a handicapping contest where you auctioned off, like a internship program with like Klarovich's group, like a
Cool.
dinner with Rapoli. Like there's all these titans of industry, of business within horse racing that, like you
Yeah.
said, you're rubbing shoulders with them, but it would be really cool to connect them in. Stable sounds like a way to kind of vet it. So that way they kind of can pass a few of these like sniff tests, just random people reaching out. But like people that are in racing want racing to thrive, and like leveraging that, I think, is definitely an underutilized asset that the sport has right now. So that got my ears like pointed up for sure. I didn't even think about that side of things.
Yeah. I mean, it's obviously the sport is all about the horses, the welfare of the horses, making sure that they're like healthy, safe, sound, and running. But there's a whole community of people where this is their day to day in their life. And if I've learned anything over the past couple of years of kind of being full time into building up this venture, it's people are so willing to help if you just prove that you have, the sport's best interests in mind and you're trying to take it in a way that you view it to be a productive use of time. And I just remember even as like an 8-year-old, when my dad was owning horses and you'd meet these very successful people and they'd be like, oh, if you ever need help with like college, if you ever need help with jobs. And again, I'm like, 4 feet tall and I'm so far away from it. But people were so quick to offer help and assistance. And the community, the horse racing community is very active and, sometimes it might be a little like brush, but at the end of the day, we love the sport. We love the horses and we just want to do everything we can to help the sport and each other. And so I think, the more ways we can bring the most successful folks in the industry and connect them to like the next generation of fans, owners, viewers, just any of those stakeholders, we're doing something right, I think. So that's going to be part of the mission here.
%. And you're doing this full time now, right?
Yeah. So so funny enough, so you mentioned Matt Kater. So he was kind of the guy who gave me enough of like a wink, wink, nudge, nudge of like, if you're going to do this, I believe in you, you should do it. So I have to thank him for kind of giving me and instilling in me that confidence. And then I had some pre-productive conversations with the folks at Naira, Dave O'Rourke, the CEO, and Andrew Offerman, the COO, just basically starting out as conversations of, hey, you put $500 million into a facility. What's your plan to bring the 25 to 35-year-old to the track more than just a day or two a year? And we were kind of batting around ideas. And I got to the point where I was like, okay, well, I have this like 20-page deck and like a financial model. I come from the investment banking world. So it was like, I kind of have this like proposal if you just want to like hear me out. And we spoke for what had to be like an hour and a half. And at the end of it, they were like, whatever you need to like get this off the ground, we'll help you any way we can. And so obviously, the timing element was interesting as these conversations started in April and May. Belmont wasn't opening until September of 26 anyways. So there was going to be this lead time, but I kind of knew like, listen, one, hard reset from the investment banking lifestyle, which I'm very happy to say I'm like going to bed a lot earlier now and live a healthier life. But two, I just use it as the, reason that I can be up here in Saratoga the entire summer, be on the backstretch most mornings and just meet people that if I was doing something else and then doing this like secondarily, it would feel like a chore. Now it feels like a life, and one that I'm, excited to continue building. But yeah, thank you to Matt Kater for giving me the gumption to go out and do this. Try it at least.
That's full circle, but take me back. So like, at what point did you start building that model out? At what point did you start building that deck out? Like, I know you're a very smart, like calculated dude in a sense.
What about that?
I'm sure you're like, you went into those conversations with, Dave and the COO with kind of like, you wanted to lead into it and you kind of wanted to see if there was, some buy-in from their end without like kind of pushing right away. But like, at what point did the idea kind of get seated in your brain? And I'm just kind of curious, like how that idea.
Yeah, no, it's a great question. Life moves very quickly. Like if you were to ask me a year ago, when I was up here in Saratoga on the weekends, that I would have left my job and started something in the sport. I would have been like, no, you're crazy. I actually really liked where I was, and it did very well for me. I actually, this will be a fun thought exercise for you and your buddies. I was out at a bar with one of my coworkers. And if he ever listens to this, you know exactly who you are. And we were asking each other the question, what's your most ideal 24 hours in a day? And go hour by hour. So like, where are you? Who are you with? What are you eating? Like, get as granular as possible. And you do that whole saga. You then ask the follow-up question, okay, if you can monetize one of those hours that you just described, what would it be? And how can you like move forward to try and develop something like that? And so my 24 hours honestly was all here in Saratoga. And it was a lot about bringing people to the backstretch and just trying to like engage new and bring new people into the community. And he said, that's interesting. Have you ever thought about anything like it? And I kind of gave him the spiel that you just heard of like, well, I started doing these watch parties. I'd love to actually like make it into an enterprise. There's a new, facility going up. It's going to be 30 minutes outside the city. There might be something there. And he said to me almost verbatim, like, I've heard a lot of really crappy ideas, and that's not a crappy idea. You should probably do something about it. And that he went to the bathroom. I texted Matt Kater because it was right before the Breeders' Cup. And I said, hey, if you're out at the Breeders' Cup, I'll be there. I like took my very few vacation days to go out to San Diego at Del Mar. And I said, I'd love to talk to you about this because I think I have an idea. And from early November to February, I was just kind of ideating on it with Matt. And then come March and April, I started having the conversations with Naira. They went as good as I could have ever asked for. And then I was like, okay, I'm gonna really jump into this. But that's honestly the entire saga, since you asked.
That's badass. Cause like I've done that thought exercise, and shamelessly, that's like
cool.
That's like do like first date questions is like, oh, if you got to design like your best day, like what would it be? And you usually can tell how much the girl sucks depending on that answer, or they can tell how much I suck because of that answer. Because my answer usually involves a lot of horse racing too. But I've never considered the like follow up question there of like, how would you monetize one of those hours? So that's a great question.
Yeah, it really makes you think. I mean, I stole it from a guy who I met 10 years ago, roomed with him in New York, still very good friends. He's coming up this weekend. And he left his job at Bank of America Investment Banking to become a full-time TikToker. He now has like 3 million on TikTok. Like, I'm going to misrepresent the numbers, but millions on TikTok, hundreds of thousands on Instagram. And I remember living in the East Village with him where he was trying to do the Bank of America thing, but also do like stand-up comedy on the side and go to like, comedy shows. And he was like, do you know what? Life's too short. I'm going to try something, and finance will always be there if it doesn't work out. And he's living very much his best life. So yeah, to kind of take a risk like that, but was definitely inspired by him seeing that. Now, I did 6 years of banking, so I waited a little longer, but it allowed me to take the risk that I am now. So I'm fortunate for that.
That's gonna be a very cool like side part of the fun of this weekend is that conversation coming full circle.
He's so excited. And now he's going to be like capturing content and stuff, which would be fun. I'm like, yeah, if you're going to like stay with me, you're going to be put to work, my guy. Yeah. But he's fantastic at what he does. He's incredibly creative. And yeah, you're right. Like, talk about a guy who, I don't know, you meet so many people in investment banking and it's always like a one-track minded type of thing. He was someone that I met during like an early freshman year of college internship. And you could just tell like he thought about things so creatively, even though he did want to do the finance route. But to see him like blossom, pretty quickly out of college and have his time in like the corporate world and really just explore what he wanted to do, inspiring to say the least. But yeah, I'm going to try to, follow in his wake.
100%. What do you think has been like the most surprising part of the whole journey thus far?
Yeah. There are no bad surprises, which is good, or else I'd feel like that would be super top of mind. I would say, and I think we hit on it a little bit earlier, just almost the blind support from people who you're kind of included. I met you 8 days ago or 9 days ago type of thing. And we just had like a quick conversation after you were getting off set and I was coming onto the set. And we traded what could have only been like 2 minutes of back and forth. But you were like, let's continue the conversation. Then we talked more like, seriously at the sales. And all of a sudden now, you are like Mr. Connector and I've made all these connections and I feel a lot more plugged into the ecosystem now than I was 8 days ago. But, whether you talk to like people on the NYRA circuit and people of that team, whether you talk to like people in other syndicates or stables or people in the media, like people just hear what I'm trying to do and they've been, who can I connect you with? How can we like build this forward? And that's been fun. And sometimes I just have like listen, I'm like a one-person enterprise and like flying by the seat of my pants. And I got to get better at like asking people for stuff. But it's been surprising to almost be like, hi, great to meet you. This is what I'm building. And to come have a conversation with like action item A, B, C, D, all the way through Z with all these follow-ups. It makes the idea feeling validated. It'll feel all the more validated after we do like our first event. And then once Belmont opens and we bring all of the energy back to the city. But yeah, it's been surprising because I think otherwise I had viewed horse racing as maybe a little more of like a closed off community where people were very much in their own swim lanes. And if you were trying to do anything tangential in that similar swim lane, people would be like sharp elbowed. I think it's become, or at least my experience is, it's been a lot more collaborative than that. And I think we're at a point in the sport where you see jurisdictions working together to try to elongate the season and bring in more media dollars and eyeballs. You see influencers, you see big media personalities working together. Like we need to just help each other and collaborate as opposed to all trying to do like our own separate thing. And I think the tide rises. Each of us individually, we all rise together with the tide when we can work together. So I will work with anyone. I will do anything with anyone, but all in the name of the sport to grow it.
100%. I think the biggest thing with anybody that's in the game, quote unquote, is like you can recognize like pretty easily what people's motives are and like the genuine from the non-genuine in the game and like the shady and the non-shady. Like the game kind of just like it has all these different characters, and it's a really good life skill too of like starting to kind of see how people are. And I could tell right away that you're just a genuine dude. So I was like, let's go. This is like amazing idea and like amazing guy running it. So like let's giddy up.
It's a giddy up. Yeah, that's how I end most of my emails. I appreciate that. Yeah, do you know what? And it's just one of these things. Talk about a life skill. You're absolutely right. And this industry will teach you a lot of like life skills and soft skills too. And I think as someone who saw it as like an 8-year-old, I was like, oh, so this is how you like act at a 4-hour dinner with people that you've met for the first time. Like you can't be like throwing a tantrum. You got to like eat your fettuccine Alfredo and shut up. But it was just one of these things where it was like so many people seem so interested about it in New York. And I had started posting a lot more on my like personal social media of like horses that were running or we were buying as part of Delphi. And I will not consider myself like big on social media at all. But I went from like Instagram stories getting like, 5 or 6 hearts to like 30, 35, 40 hearts. And I'm like, okay, so people are genuinely curious about what I'm doing with this thing. So try to bring more people into the fold. Now, the one other thing I'd say to it is, and this is kind of the conversation that I had with NYRA, is the big days, Travers, Whitney, Wood Memorial, and Belmont, if you want to call like the 4 big NYRA days, they're always going to be big. And the Wood Memorial, maybe you like push off to like the tier B, but those days are always going to be big. Why not create programming and bring people in so that the best part of the NYRA circuit is they run here in the state of New York all 12 months. Why not build the rest of the days and try to increase the eyeballs and the gross handle by 5% on each of those days? That has a significant impact on P&L, as much as a 2% increase in Whitney handle or a 5% increase in Travers on-track participation or attendance goes. So I talk about like the rising tide type of thing. I'm trying to attack also those like long tails of Saturdays and Sundays throughout the winter, whether it's, throwing watch parties in the city, and we'll do like a handicapping tournament and people can win Naira gear and like stable gear and all this stuff, just to bring more attention to the sport beyond its, call it 7 or 8 big days a year. And so you see what Naira and Churchill are doing, controversy on, what it is and who's part of it and who isn't, which I won't go into. But I think on balance, you create what was a 6-week media cycle of horse racing. And if you were lucky, it was 6 weeks, because by people missing the Preakness, it kind of just, ESPN wasn't covering it anymore. NBC, ABC, they just weren't covering it anymore. You go from a 6-week media cycle to, what is it, May to September, maybe even October, of a 3-year-old campaign that just keeps the sport in the eyes of people for a lot longer. And I think the strongest part of the sport is it's year round across a lot of jurisdictions. So use the supply, but you got to find the right demand. And so this is kind of what I'm trying to do is a way in which you're gauging demand on the long tail of days and just trying to raise those bit by bit, and have a serious impact on P&L there.
Yeah, I think it's a very underutilized asset. I always make fun of some of the tracks that you go into the casino and you don't know that there's a horse track there. It's like, you guys have like this, very marketable product that you're just hiding in your backyard for no reason. And it's a good draw to your casino, as well as like, it could be a very profitable enterprise. And like at one point, like horse racing was the biggest taxpayer in New York City. Like, and I think the issue had been like some of the facilities had been like, and there's still some horse tracks where it's like, if I'm bringing, a first rodeo person out to a racetrack, like I'm not going to take him to Ellis. I'm going to take him to Keaton or take him to Churchill or take him to Saratoga, where it's like, now you have this beautiful facility in Belmont, and like now it's about getting asses in seats. And that's the hard part. But once they have asses in seats, like, all of a sudden, like everything goes a bit further. I've learned a little bit more about the business model of horse tracks, and like they keep a much larger percentage of the wagering dollar that gets funneled through if it's wagered on track. So like the lack of foresight of like drawing people to the track lately is asinine, because it's like it's bad business overall. And I guess like they've monetized the game in the sense of like government subsidies and HHR machines in Kentucky, but the actual on track experience, and like you kind of are leaning into it with, in real life experiences. As we become more AI, more online, I think that pendulum's going to swing naturally towards like wanting to have a connection to nature, a connection. Isn't it so cool? It's like, bro, you're in New York City, like all you have is really Central Park to like really go outside. But you can get a train 30 minutes to Belmont Park, and like you can go see some horses, bro. Like there's some open area.
Absolutely. It's one of those things where you have the history, the facility, you have all of it almost right there in front of you. And literally, like, it would take longer for you to get to Williamsburg from the Upper East Side than it would be to like Belmont Park. It would almost be equidistant. But half of the battle and half of like the mandate that I'm going after is, how do you reduce that friction even further? Because people will be like, oh, I don't want to get on the train, or, oh, I don't want to. So then all of a sudden it's creating programming where it's like, we're all going to meet up, have brunch, on the Upper East Side, and then we're going to party bus it out, once every 2 months type of thing, and make it like a big splashy event. If you can reduce friction and get people to the track, the sport sells itself. The asset and the actual facility will sell itself. And then my job's kind of done. I just need to retain them. But the storytelling behind it, the live experiential, assets that they'll want to come back for more. The problem is getting there the first time. And so that's where doing something in Saratoga to like kick this thing off. I've never met a person who's gone to Saratoga and hated it. So you just automatically grab people from there. And then you hope that they go to their friends and they start posting on social media. And if I have it my way and we talk, a year from now on August 18th, 2027, I want people to be talking about how, once a month they're going to the track. These people don't need to be, weekly attendees, I will lose money on them if they are weekly attendees. But if I can bring which is fine because again, I'm growing the sport and I'm fine with it. But if I have people building into their social programming, I'm going to go to the track once a month or once every other month, and I'll come to one of Staples in New York City events in Manhattan or in Brooklyn once a month or once every other month. That's enough of a touch point where you've broken the friction. You've gone all through that. And then it's self-sustaining and self-fulfilling. So yeah, that's kind of the goal. We'll see.
And like, so if someone joins Staples, they get like a guest pass too, right? So if they go once a month, they can bring a friend.
Yep, exactly. So like from a pricing perspective, it is like subscription based. The way it's charged is $200 a month, which in my opinion, it's cheaper than a lot of New York gyms. You can't get a dinner in New York for about $200
all inclusive
anyways.
Track, bro. You lose
all
money
inclusive
on
at the track. So thank you, Naira, for understanding, what it means to bring butts and seats. To your point, though, the entire business model is predicated on if you walked around Belmont on let's say, Sunday in April of 2027, there will be empty suites. There will be empty boxes. So if the hospitality isn't used, but I can get the demand because people are going to want to have some sort of live event, a Sunday fun day, watch NFL games from the track at one of the new bars, and I can bring those people in. And hey, they also happen to wager, a couple of dollars here or there. They're buying concessions. They're having a positive experience at the track. The cost to acquire that user customer is low because people are just going to be coming back for more. But anyways, correct on kind of, you'll get a couple of guest passes to bring people around. And then we're also going to do events. We'll do something with Monmouth Park. I'm talking to them right now. We're doing a thing at the Hunt, which is the Far Hills race meeting, which is kind of in my backyard of New Jersey in mid-October. So again, how do you reduce friction, get a party bus out there, have people just bring a friend or two? It's basically a big football tailgate where they do steeplechase racing in and around you. It's like the event of the year if you're in New Jersey. All in the name of growing the sport and having people build the sport into their social programming and meet a ton of young, finance, legal, consulting, artists, creators on the back end and grow your community and grow your network as well. So that's the goal.
Yeah, I think it's, I definitely challenge people to go to the track once a month because I pretty much do that now. I live in Texas and I'm flying out to like Kentucky or New York or Arkansas like once a month. And I usually drag at least one friend with me and I guarantee you it's like a thrill, you almost become like a friend with a boat. Like you're a friend with horse racing, right? You bring somebody to the track with you and I guarantee you like you said, it'll sell itself. And having that, it's almost like kind of like creating like evangelists for the sport too, where like, okay, you got 32 people this week and you're going to kind of, usher in the correct way, show them like the right way to have a good time to make your movie, a blockbuster success on your day at the track. And then what's going to happen is like those 32 people are going to bring 32 people and then it cascades all the way through, or like there's like, I think it's a very universal feeling within horse racing where you're very hard pressed to find someone that doesn't want to bring somebody new to the track with them because it kind of gives you like, you feel good about it, like showing off what I know, you feel smart.
Yeah.
Well, like,
you wave the badge, you walk into the paddock.
Yeah.
I brought 12 people to like the Aqueduct closing weekend. And I don't know if you ever made it out to Aqueduct, but
once.
It wasn't the nicest of facilities, but a ton of history, like honestly, a great community there as well. And I'm like, I brought people to the paddock. We watched a race from the winner's circle and they were like, James, this is the coolest thing. It was like cold. It was kind of rainy. Like it wasn't even that nice of a day. And my point of view is like, if you guys like this, there is so much more coming on the New York circuit, just across other jurisdictions that we're going to try to bring you to in the name of like promoting the sport. So, if Aqueduct can sell itself and sell new fans, New Belmont will absolutely be able to. And then just bring in a whole bit of in New York City social programming as well. You'll get people talking to each other. And to your point, it builds a network effect. That one person then brings two people in, those two bring four. And you just have people showing up to these happy hours where we'll bring in an owner or a trainer or something. And you just have people genuinely asking questions on what is it like to be in the industry. It's going to be a challenge for sure, but I'm very happy with kind of this starting cohort that I have. I'm very lucky to have a very supportive like friend group and, people who have, believed in this idea for a while. But if people can latch onto it and be the evangelists to their friends that are outside of my circle right now and bring them in, I'll be a moot point at some point. And that's when I know, well, I will have done my job. So we'll see.
100%. I think there's like some second, third order positive effects for the game too, in a sense of when you bring that new person to the track, I think it's like the energy is kind of infectious too, in a sense of if because I did it at one point in my life, I was 4 months, I was a groom every single day, and you still appreciate the magic of horses, but when you see a new person that you kind of live it through them, I think you kind of, that magic kind of like really kicks up. Like maybe it's like a little dormant, needs a little like stir, shake.
Yeah.
And it kind of like revives you too. So I think that like there's gonna be a second order like positive effect for anybody that gets like connected, or like you're a person this weekend that's like, given the tour at the Clement Barn. I think like everyone that's around like kind of gets a jolt of energy when they feel what they're doing is important too. Because I think it's very easy to like say, hey, like, we appreciate everyone in the backstretch, but like actually going there and like giving those people like their for like, dude, I really appreciate you. This is so cool what you do. Like someone like giving you kudos and like seeing the day-to-day grind that you go through and appreciating it also gives you energy. So I think that's like a second order, third order effect that's gonna be positive for the game too. But I'm curious, how did you form this initial like coalition? Like how did you think about the vibes of like the initial group here? Because I'm curious.
Yeah, so it's funny. No group, call it like ex-coworkers, call it, Michigan friends, etc. No group is larger than 4 people. So I wanted to make sure, because I could invite, half of my old firm who have been very supportive of this entire endeavor, but I don't want anyone to feel scared to like go to a new group and be one of 32 where 16 of the 32 already know each other. I think there's something special about, you just bring a bunch of like different groups together. And again, we all live in New York. Like that is the common denominator. We're all in the tri-state area. We're all very close to Belmont. Start having people being like, oh, I'm also in banking at a different bank, or, oh, I'm studying for law school and you're a lawyer, and just bring people together again to the point where I'm not going to have to be the one like facilitating every conversation and playing matchmaker, because at the end of the day, you bring in a curated enough group where you know that everyone's going to be able to talk to each other and have a somewhat of a commonality. And you just hope by the end of the weekend, it's like, one, we love Saratoga and we love this sport, and like the access that Stable has given us and like the experience James has given us is something that we're going to want to bring down to New York City. But then 2, you have 20 new Instagram followers, 15 new LinkedIn connections, and maybe a new job prospect out of it. And I think as like young people who are also hungry to like develop our careers and just like continue to build out our like flywheel and our network, this will do it for you. All the while, live event programming, horse racing, getting the owner like access without the owner price tag. It's kind of all in one in that regard.
Badass. And I'm looking forward to hitting you up next week and seeing how good things went. For sure.
Yeah. Well, yeah. No, appreciate it.
Crossed. Everything's good. Knock on wood. Fingers crossed. You guys have a great weekend. Dialed in. But I think this is my favorite part of the podcast here. And you're already doing a lot to usher in, a better horse racing. But I call it the magic wand question. If you had a magic wand and it could do anything, you're king, unlimited money, everyone's going to buy in. What would you do to improve the sport of horse racing as a whole?
Limited money. I actually think where there's a gap, and what I am going to try to do, because we'll do like a handicapping tournament where you can win like Stable credits. I just did a whole like pick and pray type of model. I started myself just playing in these like tournaments. I hope to like qualify for NHC or BCBC. there's so much happening right now in the world of like sports betting, and people are spending their money in a lot of ways in that regard. I think there's so much value and ways you can play and are data driven when it comes to like horse racing. I think that's what's kept me so involved from like a wagering point of view, is you can have a new angle every week and play that and see if that's like positive ROI and go from there. I would love to actually establish more, how to properly wager, what types of wagers there are. I'm trying to do a whole media series in the background on this, so more to come on that. But bring in tournaments for, first time horse players, because otherwise, you go up to the teller for the first time, you don't know, hey, $3 exacta box with 3 horses. You don't know that that's going to cost you $27 or whatever it is. Like you're always $18. You're always wondering to yourself though, like, am I making the right bet or am I like throwing away my money? I think there's ways though where we can like educate a whole new generation of people who are, spend money and are okay gambling and they have like a little bit of income to do so, and bring that towards horse racing. You see the way handle has kind of flatlined in horse racing. If you do like the real inflation adjusted, it's gone down. But you look at, gross gaming revenue for Flutter or DraftKings or Entain or any of those, and it continues to go up and to the right. Horse racing has the history. We have the analytics and we have the data power we should be getting more of a market share and a wallet share. But I think it's just such a hard thing to break into, as opposed to being like, I want this team to win versus that team to win. But if we could educate people properly and how to like sustainably do it, I think that would reduce some friction and bring people into the sport.
Yeah,
We'll
you've said it a few times, but it's reducing friction. I think there's the big one, because you grow up playing football, playing basketball, playing t-ball. Like you think you understand, how to bet on sports based upon, your own lived experiences, where, it's very rare to grow up around horses nowadays. Like the densely populated areas like Jersey, where we're from, where there's a lot of friction there in terms of like getting out to the track, which you're addressing, but it's like, you gotta buy the program, you gotta figure out how to read the program, then you gotta figure out how to bet. And then there's like, that doesn't even get into like wagering strategy, things like that. And I think it's expensive to get into in terms of like the data, and like expensive because like brain power to actually start understanding it. As in then like actually wagering on it is like intimidating as well. And I think there's opportunities throughout that entire, your first day at the track where things can be improved. And I think we're staring at, a great opportunity in our face in terms of, being able to leverage, the large language models, all these tools that we have that people are now way more used to. We're like, used to the Google. I remember like sophomore year of high school grinding in like computer lab or whatever. It was like derby time, and like I'm just looking up like who's doing the derby, like trifecta energies, things like that.
Yeah.
Before it was very like, I'm going to type in and read an article. Now it's like you are kind of the captain of the ship. So I think it's like, I wish there was a little bit more, whether it's like an API, or I know there's some tools now. There's one on my phone that I've like farted around with. It's like stable something AI, like making it easier for people that, understand sports gambling, understand, odds a little bit, understand horsing a little bit, and like making the friction to get them onto like these LLMs so they feel like they are captaining the ship, I think is the biggest thing, because you want to feel like you were right when you went to bet. At least that's how I am. Like, I'm not a guy that's like gonna like buy, an NFL Sunday package for gambling, because like, A, I don't bet on any but horses now, but B, like, I want to be right. Like, I think part of the reason I like to gamble is I like to be right. So I think like if we somehow can like leverage that in, a more cohesive, easier to use way, it would go a long way of like making that first on-track experience for somebody that much more special.
I fully agree. And honestly, it goes back to like the curiosity that people have around this sport. For the derby parties I'd have in the city, for the races that my horses were running in. I would print out the programs. I would do like quick sessions. I would print out a tip sheet for people to like read what my like live long shot is, things like that. And people loved it. People wanted to learn. People were, what are the running lines? Do they matter more than the workouts? And to your point, you kind of choose how you want to wager and what weighting you put on this very dense set of data that you'll get from DRF or Brisnet or Thorograph or Rags or whoever. And so there is just, I think, this opportunity. One, the democratization of data. If, again, going back to like the King magic wand, unlimited money, just give it to everyone and give everyone the same set of data and then let people, go from there. That's one thing. But then two, people like to learn and then like to feel like they're compensated for learning, and horse racing will do that if you're picking the winners. But do you know what then? Even if you lose, these people still have a fun time. We're not wagering against our means or above our means type of thing. And you walk out of the track or you walk out of the bar and you're like, do you know what? We had 5 races. We won one of them. We're even. But all of that to like be cheering down the stretch 5 times and feel like we're really into it and have like our heart racing, well worth the experience.
Yeah, I feel like it's still the only form of entertainment to me where it's like I can get paid to go have fun.
Oh yeah,
Whitney Friday, I went to the track and I hit 2 bets, but I was profitable. It's like, come on, this is the best sport of all time.
Absolutely. Yeah. Saratoga's been a tough meet so far, but then Whitney Friday, funny enough, I hit that like early pick 5, which I hit to hit like a horizontal wager at Saratoga till then. And that it's so funny. You're like, slowly down. Whoa. Now you're like way up again. But it's kind of like law of averages, right? Like if you know what you're talking about and you have a consistent way that you bet with a consistent like monetary value, sometimes the house wins for sure, but you're not going to keep like going down and to the right or left. Yeah.
Yeah. Eventually water finds its level. All right. Let's do rapid fire questions. But before we do rapid fire questions, wrap it up. Where can people find you? Where can people find out more about Stable?
Yeah, so on Instagram, we're Stable NYC, all kind of truncated one word. And then our website is jointhestable.net. Just a little kind of like intro of what we are. And then there's information, I call it a interest form. Basically, it just routes to me that your name and, email address are interested. I'll come back to you with options on pricing. We have a discount if you're kind of like a couple or a 2 pair, because again, we want everyone to be involved in this thing, but there's individual memberships for annual, and then a couple annual membership as well. And then at that point, I'll just kind of want to talk to you about like, why do you want to be a part of it and what can I do for you to really make this like a fun experience? But yeah, we'll start throwing events in the city come Belmont opening weekend. And then we're going to try to do 2 to 3 days at the track a month, and then 1 to 2 events in the city a month. So enough where you can try to hit that like come to once a month thing, feel like you're getting the value of it, but also not too few where it's like, oh, I missed that. I don't feel like I'm getting my value. And so you churn, because that would be the worst thing that happens. We're going to try to bring lifelong fans through this.
Yeah. What, before rapid fire, I haven't asked this question yet. What's like home run success? You mentioned if we're talking August 18th, 27, what's like a home run and talk numbers in terms of like people that you got involved, not like, I know your heart's in the right place.
I'm happy. Yeah.
I like that. And I know you can give like a very good, like you would give a very good answer here of like, I wanted to give new people to the track, but like numbers wise, like what's considered like with your models, like what's like a home run year 1 goal?
This is setting myself up for either major success or utter failure. So we'll say if I can get this time next year, if I can have 150 members, I'd be incredibly happy. And if I could have done 2 what I'm considering like travel events where we do a weekend in Keeneland, which is obviously, hospitality down in Lexington, but then you also do a farm tour, a bourbon tasting, and then maybe a UK football game or something like that, and make, bespoke live event experiences where people can build community around it. And it's tangentially related to horse racing IP, and horse racing will be a part of that agenda. But at the end of the day, it's just bringing people together and, honestly, like we said, living life together as opposed to like being on our phones. I think that's a huge win. So 2 events, 150 members. I'd be very happy.
I'm gonna set a reminder on my phone right after this. I'm gonna text you in a year from now and see what happens. And if we need help with Kentucky, we do that. Like end of year party once a year, we do it. And then it's our second annual. Cool. We do it in a sense that this is our second year doing it. Or actually, we did like a tour of Airdrie Stud. We went right to the hill. We went right to the backside of Keeneland. Did a backside tour on the hill. Then in the paddock, we jammed way too much in one day, but like we did a full like day. And I can plug you in to a few people in Kentucky that I know would share your mission for sure.
So that's kind of the goal. There's a bunch of tracks in and around it, just honestly in America, but I even think like Woodbine that has like great accommodations, and it could be fun to bring people up there. And so the value proposition there is like, hey, try to bring to 15 to 20 somethings, have a full weekend worth of programming where people bring plus ones or people go individually, and let them be exposed to different parts of either like the tracks ecosystem, whether it's Gulfstream or Keeneland or Churchill, etc., or you do like tours down in Ocala, or you do, just other parts of kind of the entire like stakeholder roadmap, just to make people feel like they are actually really involved in the sport beyond going to like one singular track on, any given Saturday type of thing.
Yeah, I think it's such a fun story to be a part of. It's just a fun story to get plugged in with, and there's so many funny characters with funny stories along the way too. Yeah. So I'm excited for people to experience that. But let's you've been very kind with your time. Let's get into rapid fire questions and close things out here. All right, so everything should be like a one word or one phrase answer.
That's gonna be tough for me. Okay, good, got it.
Favorite racetrack?
Saratoga. Yeah.
Easy. Favorite racehorse of all time?
Oh, one that we owned would be Macho again. Not owned. I love Catholic Boy. That guy can run on anything. He was like my big Travers hit.
Oh yeah. What's your favorite big day at the tracks? Like Derby Day, Breeders' Cup Friday, Travers.
Travers for sure. Birthday too. I'm biased. Yeah.
This is so now it can be like horse racing related, not horse racing related. When you hear the word successful, who is the first person you think of?
My mom. Weirdly enough. Yeah.
I love that. All right, and then you're a young dude. We'll close with this one. If you had, so like it's crazy to ask young you for advice that you would give younger James, but if you had to give advice to your younger self, what would it be?
Always go with your gut, even when people are telling you to like take the safe route. There's been a couple of stories, whether it's college selection, full-time job selection, doing this full-time, where the majority have probably been on the side that I didn't take. And I'm very happy with how life has turned out so far. So I'm glad I stuck with, what my gut was telling me.
Oh, yeah. Well, James, this is fun. We'll do it again soon. Excited to hear how this weekend goes. But find James if you're interested in stable. If you're New York City based, reach out to James. Have any questions, and enjoy the ride. I'm looking forward to seeing everything that you get at the track.
Yeah, thanks again for taking the time, and thanks again for setting up this forum.